Keith Poe was in his fishing boat off the coast of Los Angeles when he was struck by a literal sea monster. In this case, the sea monster came in the form of a great white shark. According to Keith himself, the shark struck his vessel with such outstanding force that he first thought he had been hit by a sailboat. But the attack didn't stop with a single headbutt. According to the report in Men's Journal, Keith was attacked 7 different times during a small window of only 3 days. The attacks usually came at sunrise or sunset. The largest of these sharks measured about 18 feet, over 5 meters long. Yikes! As it turned out, the shark, or sharks, were riled up because a huge humpback whale known locally as Wally had washed ashore, drawing sharks into the area. The carcass was towed off the beach 3 times, but it kept drifting back. The sharks were so eager to sink their teeth into the dead whale and so frustrated they couldn't seem to reach it that they took out their anger on Keith's boat instead. Luckily, nobody was injured, though Keith's boat did suffer superficial damage from the vicious fish.
Lamprey often get confused with other species, including incorrectly being labelled as lamprey eels by some, despite not having connections with eels at all. They may look similar, and both may be scary in their own way, but they're not related. The lamprey has a long snake-like body that can grow to be 2 feet, with smooth, scaleless skin. What makes the lamprey so terrifying though is that they have a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth, and they suck blood, like some kind of Dracula of the sea. There are about 38 known extant species of lampreys and 5 known extinct species. Parasitic carnivorous species are the most well-known and feed by boring into the flesh of other fish to suck their blood, but only 18 species of lampreys engage in this micro-predatory lifestyle. The species has lived an exceptionally long time, about 360 million years. This makes them some of the oldest remaining creatures alive. They thrive in both saltwater and freshwater. Throughout their metamorphosis from filter feeders to parasitic lampreys, their kidneys change so they can tolerate salty water. This lets them survive in lakes and oceans where they can seek hosts, aka unfortunate fish, to feed on until it's time to spawn. One look inside the mouth of one of these fish and you might never want to swim again.
Out of all the giant monsters to have ever lived in the Amazon, the legendary Titanoboa is the most gigantic of them all. This enormous snake was first discovered fossilized in Colombia, and it has since revealed an image of what the region looked like thousands of years ago. It turns out that the Amazon rainforest was ruled by beasts far larger than anyone had previously imagined. The Titanoboa was longer than a school bus and at least as heavy as a small car. It ruled the tropical ecosystems of South America 6 million years after the fall of the most legendary dinosaurs of all, according to a report from the journal Nature. Based on the fossils found of the Titanoboa, it would have been around 45 feet long. That would have made the snake as long as the Tyrannosaurus Rex. The snake would have lived in the same environments as the modern anaconda. It would have slithered through waterways and hung out in lakes, eating pretty much everything it wanted. The snake would have been so big that it couldn't have fit through a standard doorway without quite a bit of squeezing. Thankfully, this monstrous beast is no longer alive today, otherwise nobody would ever go to the Amazon rainforest.
The Anne Alexander was a whaling ship from Massachusetts and one of the only vessels confirmed to have actually been sunk by a real sea monster. This time, the sea monster was a sperm whale. It attacked Anne Alexander on August 20, 1851. At the time, the ship was under the command of Captain John de Blois. The ship was about 3,000 miles or 4,800 kilometres from the coast of South America when they spotted a whale. The ship dropped 2 separate whaleboats, one with the first mate in command, the other with the captain. The first mate managed to harpoon a whale, but after he got the harpoon tethered, the whale turned and opened its jaws and destroyed the boat in a single bite. It was lucky that there was a second whaleboat, as the captain rowed over and saved the crewmen from the shattered vessel. There were then 12 men stuck in a single boat and quite far from their ship. They managed to evade further attacks by the whale and get back to the Anne Alexander, at which point it was agreed they would continue to hunt the whale. After all, now it was personal. But things didn't end well for the whalers. They got a second harpoon into the giant beast's head, but it only made it even more upset, understandably so. The whale charged at the ship, smashing a hole in the hull of the Anne Alexander below the waterline. Within minutes, the boat began flooding. All 22 men aboard had to abandon ship and wait to be rescued while they watched the Anne Alexander sink and the whale swim away.
Known to be 9 feet and 200 pounds at times, the arapaima is one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. The massive Amazon fish have broad and bony heads. Their mouths are upturned and their bodies are streamlined with the dorsal fin stretching along their backs towards their tails. The dorsal fin is pretty big, yet stumpy looking. The head is green copperish in color and their bodies are black with a white center and their tails are red. The arapaima is fierce and doesn't have a lot of predators. Curiously though, they need surface air in order to survive. As such, they live very close to the surface while in the Amazon River and surrounding lakes, as they literally need to come up for air, even making a coughing sound when they breathe it in. Even with that need though, they can be terrors in the water when they hunt. And while they don't go after humans, you will likely freak out if you go and see this 9-foot monster in the water next to you.
All throughout the Amazon rainforest, there is one persistent legend. The myth is about a creature known as the mapinguari, also known as the sloth monster. Not just a giant sloth, but an actual sloth monster. It's a very popular legend in Brazilian culture, and the tales persist even today. There have been reported sightings of this gigantic beast almost every year, but unfortunately the true evidence is lacking. But let's start the story at the beginning. The sloth monster has been around for at least a few thousand years, and it apparently began life as an Amazonian shaman who found the secret to immortality. This shaman became smug, and the gods punished him by turning him into a giant sloth and banishing him to wander aimlessly through the forest for eternity. While that obviously didn't happen, the truth is that the giant sloth monster could in fact just be a giant sloth. These creatures did indeed exist. The giant ground sloth has been extinct for thousands of years, but when alive it grew to an amazing size of around 10 feet when standing on its hind legs. That makes it a pretty huge monster. It is possible that people have throughout the centuries mistaken the legendary sloth monster for a real ground sloth, though it's unlikely any of these animals are still alive, even hiding in the density of the jungle.
A French yacht was taking part in a round-the-world sailing competition when they were attacked by a giant squid in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Veteran yachtsman Oliver de Kersorson was at the helm of his yacht when the boat was unexpectedly struck by curious vibrations. Oliver sent a crewmate below deck to identify the issue, and that was when he saw something moving. He saw tentacles squirming around underwater. The squid had grabbed hold of the yacht and was trying to pull it beneath the surface. Nobody knew what the squid's motive was, but it was definitely trying to take down the ship. In response, Oliver brought the vessel to a complete stop. Once the ship stopped moving, the squid let go. Oliver and the crew looked behind them and saw the squid hovering there in the water, absolutely enormous, like some kind of biblical monster. Oliver said that he had been sailing for 40 years and never seen anything quite as horrifying. The boat did get away in the end, but it was pure luck. Eyewitnesses claimed the squid was at least 30 feet or 9 meters long, meaning it could easily have taken down the yacht if it had wanted to.
A fisherman off the coast of Baja, California, took pictures of what he claimed to be a one-eyed shark, and even when pictures were taken from another angle and seemed to be legit, no one believed it. Which in this case was understandable, because whoever heard of a one-eyed shark? But then, a few weeks after the first pictures were taken, more pictures featuring the one-eyed shark appeared, but this time it looked older. Which only could have happened if it was a real thing and not a construct. After some investigations, it was found out it was a real one-eyed shark. But there's a reason it was this way, and it wasn't because it was a new species or a true monster. It all had to do with genetics. In this case, it was a deformed fetus from a pregnant bull shark. How the deformation and albino coloring occurred wasn't clear, but it was very real and very rare. One expert said that 50 of these kinds of creatures have actually been documented. And this doesn't just happen to sharks, it can happen to other animals too, depending on the circumstances. While some would question whether this is truly a terrifying creature, let's be honest with ourselves here. One-eyed creatures like this aren't meant to exist in this way, and while it is an explained phenomenon, if you were the one who caught this, you likely would have dropped the strange Cyclops fish. What would you do if you caught this fish? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.
Let's change gears now and move from legend to fact. The giant Amazon leech is one of the most terrifying nightmare creatures in the world. While it's not a giant like the Titanoboa or the sloth monster, for a leech it is a verifiable behemoth. The giant leech was thought to be extinct way back in the 1890s, but it was rediscovered in the 1970s in French Guiana. There is now a successful breeding colony at UC Berkeley. When talking size, the giant Amazon leech can grow to be almost 20 inches in length. That makes it just about 2 feet long. Imagine a leech the size of your forearm trying to suck you dry of all of your blood. It's absolutely terrifying. The leeches are a greyish-brown colour, and rather than bite onto you, these buggers actually use a 6-inch tube, kind of like a straw, to stab you and suck out your blood. The leech then produces an anticoagulant from its saliva that keeps your blood flowing. If you got covered in enough of these leeches while swimming in a river, you'd be sucked dry.
At 6:30 in the morning, David Alexander took his kayak out to Shelter Cove to get a little rest and relaxation. David is a superintendent at Bellevue Union School District in Santa Rosa and really needed some time off. Kayaking seemed like the perfect escape. But what began as a day of escapism turned into a terrifying nightmare that David will never forget. The day was almost over and David was heading back to shore when suddenly he heard a thud and felt his boat lift up. At first he thought he had gotten stuck on a rock, but then he saw the grey flesh of the shark below him. The shark then exploded out of the water and sank its teeth into his kayak, literally ripping the front of the boat to shreds. The force of the bite was enough to throw David out of the boat. He landed in the water and was face to face with the deadly fish. It was an absolute miracle that the shark didn't eat him. He was literally close enough for the shark to reach out and give him a kiss, and yet the shark let go of the kayak, turned around and disappeared. David got back to land fine, but he would need a new kayak, and probably a new pair of underpants. What would you do if you were thrown from your kayak into the water with a shark? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit thumbs up and the subscribe button if you haven't already.
One of the many evolutions that fish and other creatures have is the ability to seem harmless from afar, but then, when a predator nears, they flare up their body in some way and become very aggressive. Which speaks to the nature of the sarcastic fringehead. The sarcastic fringehead seems relatively harmless and actually possesses no threat to humans whatsoever. However, when this foot-long fish is agitated or provoked, it will open its massive mouth to fend off predators. And it is that defense tactic that is both frightening and surprising. They are very territorial creatures and have been known to wrestle with their own kind in order to ensure that its home isn't invaded. They will actually battle with their giant mouths to try and overpower one another. Don't worry, it's not likely you'll run into one. They reside in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of North America. Still, when it unfolds into its true nature, that must be quite a terrifying sight to see.
There are 3 types of manatees in the world, and one of them lives in the tributaries of the Amazon River in Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, and Guyana. These are some of the biggest marine creatures that make their home in the Amazon jungle. In terms of sheer mass, manatees are huge. They can weigh at least half a ton. And while not inherently dangerous, they are certainly strange. They have a snout very similar to that of a hippo, and they have limbs that look more like paddles. But rather than terrorize the rivers of the Amazon like a nasty black caiman, manatees prefer to just eat water lettuce all throughout the day. In a single day, these weird river monsters can eat at least 8% of their body weight according to the World Wildlife Foundation. Not monstrous in a scary way, but they are certainly the largest and heaviest animal currently living in the Amazonian jungle.
On August 19, 1886, Captain Franklin D. Langsford from Massachusetts sailed away from his schooner in a small dory and saw a swordfish. It was about 8 miles or 13 kilometres from Ipswich Bay. The captain chased down the swordfish, shot a harpoon at it, then left the harpoon line attached to a buoy. Franklin then decided to go back to the main vessel for dinner. About an hour later, he got back into his dory and went out to pick up his swordfish. He arrived at his buoy, grabbed hold of the line and began to pull himself towards the rather large fish. He was about to lance the swordfish when it suddenly turned, rushed underneath his boat and thrust its nose up at the bottom of the wooden dory and impaled the captain straight through his body. In the end, the swordfish actually got stuck with its nose piercing the vessel and the captain both. The captain's schooner eventually came along and he was helped on board by his crew. The dory and the giant swordfish had to be hoisted into the schooner together. The fish was eventually killed and weighed over 300 pounds or 130 kilos. The captain survived for only 3 days before dying from his injuries.
The Mariana Trench is a very mysterious place. There could be all kinds of unknown and terrifying creatures lurking within it. However, we do know a few creatures that survive and thrive within those dark and cold waters. One such species is the anglerfish. Anyone who's seen Finding Nemo knows exactly what this fish is. And make no mistake, the feeling of fear that Marlin and Dory had when they realized the truth about what that light was is exactly how you'd feel if you saw one up close. The anglerfish is actually called the sea devil by some, which is appropriate, because its face and body definitely remind you of a demon. Its teeth are huge and sharp, and the eyes alone are enough to scare any who see it. When you think of the anglerfish, you probably think of the lure that it has on its head. This unique evolution is actually a protrusion that was born out of its body, and just like Finding Nemo shows, it'll glow, and for a very specific purpose. It'll turn the light on just enough to illuminate the area without revealing itself. It's got a few inches to do so thanks to the length of the protrusion. As the light shines, fish will slowly approach, curious about the light and its source. And while they're distracted by it, the anglerfish will get closer and closer with its huge mouth and then gobble up the unsuspecting and curious fish.
Now let's check out the largest land predator in the Amazon. I'm of course talking about the jaguar. It's the largest species of cat in the Americas and the third biggest cat in the world after the lion and the tiger. While the jaguar may seem oddly adorable in photos, it's the last thing you would want sneaking up on you in the middle of a dark night while camping in the jungle. The jaguar has so much strength in its jaws that it could easily crush your skull with just one bite. As cool as it would be to think that there are mysterious monsters skulking around in the jungle, the truth is that the jaguar is the apex land predator in all of the Americas. The jaguar is also in a steep decline, with not very many of them left because of territory loss and poaching. But that doesn't mean you should let your guard down. A jaguar can make an easy meal out of any stray traveller not prepared.
The Nomura's jellyfish is one of the most daunting creatures of the deep. It's not traditionally scary like a shark or a squid, but it is an authentic danger that can not only kill a lonely swimmer, but also an entire ship full of fishermen. Something like this actually happened in Japan when an enormous jellyfish sank a fishing trawler. According to Fox News, the boat capsized just off the coast of Japan as its crew tried to haul in a net filled with Nomura's jellyfish. Nobody knows why, but an army of these gelatinous giants gathered between the Japanese coastline and the Korean peninsula, and fishermen began accidentally reeling in nets full of them. This is bad news because the Nomura's jellyfish can grow to be over 6 feet or 1.8 meters in diameter. They can also grow to be up to 400 pounds, over 180 kilos. In any case, there were way too many jellyfish in the net. As the crew tried to haul them in, they were tossed into the sea. The immense weight of the jellies tipped the boat over and sank it, and the 3 fishermen probably would have died if not for another trawler that happened to be in the area that came to their rescue. The invasion of Nomura's jellyfish was so severe that some salmon boats stopped going out into the ocean, and many fishermen ended up losing up to 80% of their income. It was even reported that nuclear plants in the area kept getting jellyfish sucked up into their pumps, causing technical issues. Why these jellies decided to invade this area is still a mystery.
Known as the living fossil, the frilled shark is a special shark that doesn't resemble many of the species of shark that live in the oceans today. It's very unique and very scary looking. The frilled shark doesn't have many of these standard features a shark is known for. It doesn't have a large dorsal fin. Instead, it has numerous fins on the side and bottom of its body. Its skin also looks very rugged and worn, which many have likened to certain types of eels. In fact, the frilled shark has been compared to an eel a lot because of its length and movement capabilities, which is appropriate given that it can grow to be about 6.6 feet long. If you want to witness one of these special sharks up close, though we're not sure you would want to, you'll need to go to 5,000 feet below sea level in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, though some reports have it closer to the surface in other areas, such as in Suruga Bay, Japan, where it's said to be only 660 feet below sea level at max. Because they live at these depths, there's still a lot we don't know about the species, and that kind of makes it even scarier.
There are a lot of disgusting creepy crawlies in the Amazon jungle, but the worst of all is the giant Amazonian centipede. Comparatively speaking, it's a bigger monster than anything with 4 legs. It's also scarier than anything with 8 legs. Yes, the giant Goliath bird eater is the largest spider in the world, and it also lives in the Amazon jungle, but there is something inherently disturbing about a centipede that can grow to be a foot long. I'd rather come across the largest spider than the largest centipede. It's also a little disturbing that this centipede sometimes crawls up cave walls so it can dangle from the ceiling to scoop up bats as they fly underneath. Any centipede that can prey on bats and birds is not something you want to meet. This awful monster has between 21 and 23 sections on its body, with each section having 2 yellow legs. And yes, yellow is the most disgusting colour for any living creature to be. Of course, unless you're Pikachu. Another disturbing fact about the giant centipede is that it's carnivorous and incredibly aggressive. It will feed on literally anything, including lizards and snakes. It's also venomous, and if you were ever to be bitten by one, you would be in an insane amount of pain. It's not deadly to humans, but it does have one of the most painful bites in the world.
A kayaker survived the encounter of a lifetime after a humpback whale bigger than 2 buses put together did a belly flop on top of his head. The British tourist was a 35-year-old man visiting Monterey Bay in the San Francisco area. This is a hotspot for checking out whales and going on kayak tours. He opted for the kayak tour and went out not really expecting to see too much. What he got instead was a close encounter with a whale over 33 tons. That's 30,000 kilograms. Which jumped out of the water in front of his kayak and then crashed down sideways onto him. He was sucked into the water by the preposterous force created by the giant humpback whale. He was then tossed around like a rag doll in a river before eventually orientating himself and getting back to the surface. Amazingly, he didn't suffer any serious injuries. According to the New York Post, the kayaker said himself in a later interview that the beast was so huge it literally blocked out the sun when it leapt out of the water. He could see water dripping off the grooves of its body and then all of a sudden, blackness. One thing he claimed to remember after the incident is that the whale smelled absolutely horrifying, giving a whole new meaning to the term fish breath.
The hammerhead shark is one of the fiercest predators in the water. It uses its unique hammer-shaped head to find and kill its prey. While its eyes are on the side of its extended noggin, that's not a limitation. Rather, it's a strength that it happily embraces because the hammerhead shark is able to see 360 degrees, which means that regardless of whether you're in front of, behind, above, or below the hammerhead, as long as you're within its range, it can see you. Did you think hammerhead sharks were some of the smallest shark species? Guess again. They can grow to be over 20 feet long and weigh over 600 pounds. They can move very quickly and turn around on a dime to catch prey or avoid a predator. The hammer acts as a balancing organ, and their body seems to be specifically designed to twist and bend. This agility makes them very dangerous. There haven't been any human fatalities, but there have been 17 unprovoked attacks.
Anacondas are the largest and most horrifying snakes in the world. They're not venomous, but they are terrifying. They are also the largest slithering monsters currently living in the Amazon. And while we already know lots about normal anacondas, there has been a photograph circulating that claims to depict a 134-foot anaconda that has been caught in the Amazon after eating 257 people. This seems like something that could definitely happen in the Amazon at first glance, but according to Snopes.com, it's actually a fake picture. The image was not of the world's largest anaconda being transported on a flatbed truck. Upon closer inspection, you can see the truck is actually just a toy. You have been duped. The real anacondas of the Amazon can grow to be about 30 feet long and are capable of eating humans, crocodiles, and whatever else they're in the mood for. Keep in mind that the legendary Titanoboa was at most 50 feet long, only 20 feet longer than a modern anaconda. There's no way any snake on Earth today is longer than 50 feet. It's simply not possible.
In World War I, a German submarine was allegedly attacked by an unidentified sea monster. This happened in the Irish Sea in 1918 when 2 German U-boats were defeated and sunk by British patrol ships. The story has been circulating online for quite a long time. So far as the tale goes, the UB-3 class submarine was damaged by a sea creature seen by every one of the crew, all of whom described the mysterious thing as looking like a giant mutated crocodile. The creature caused so much damage that the submarine was forced to the surface, at which point the British forces took it out. To this day, nobody has been able to put forth a logical theory as to what could possibly have ravaged a German submarine during the war. Some believe it never happened. Marine archaeologist Innes McCartney claims that there was probably never a giant sea monster at all, and that the tale became popular in the 1930s when stories of sea monsters started circling the globe. And to make matters worse for the story, the submarine was found just a couple of years ago off the coast of Scotland. After taking composite images using sonar scans, there appeared to be no claw or teeth marks from any kind of monster.
The great white shark is one of the scariest species in the world. People are fascinated and terrified of them. They're quite popular. Jaws gave us nightmares and led us to believe that these massive sharks literally hunt humans. They have attacked plenty over the years, but the truth of the matter is that sharks don't usually attack people unless provoked. Usually. These sharks have been known to grow over 20 feet long. That's more than half the length of a school bus. These super swimmers are the largest predatory fish on the planet. They're super fast too. Their streamlined shape and powerful tails propel them through the water at over 60 kilometers per hour. They have about 300 razor-sharp teeth that they use to rip apart prey. They attack when you're least expecting it, and then they shake you around until you're either unconscious or dead. At times, they'll even burst out of the water in incredible speeds and suplex their victims into the water to make sure they're really done for. Some information and popular culture about great whites is undoubtedly exaggerated, but that's not to say that they aren't terrifying, because they absolutely are.
On Earth today, we have giant armadillos living in the Amazon jungle that are surprisingly huge. Modern giant armadillos can weigh up to 180 pounds and be 5 feet in height. They even have claws that are roughly 8 inches in length, making them excellent for slicing up humans. But rewind the clock 11,000 years ago and you will discover the true giant armadillo, scientifically known as the Glyptodon. This armadillo lived in the Amazon jungle and was so large that humans could use its shell as a house. A small family could literally live inside the shell of this armadillo because it was so impossibly massive. It was about as big as a car and could club a person to death with its tail. This beast would have lived during the time the giant sloth monster also roamed the Amazon, right at the end of the era of monstrous beasts. Another interesting fact about the Glyptodon is that it actually looked more like a turtle than a modern armadillo. This is because it had an armoured back that consisted of at least 1,000 bony plates all fit snugly together.
Victor Littlefield was out with his teenage son and 2 of his son's friends having a relaxing afternoon on his 33-foot or 10-metre aluminium boat. It was just another lazy Sunday. But then, out of nowhere, the boat lurched violently. Victor's first thought was that they were under siege by a deadly great white shark, though that was probably because he had just watched Jaws the previous day. There was no shark attacking his boat. Instead, it was an even more dangerous killer whale. The killer whale, also known as an orca whale, smashed into his boat several times before it grabbed hold of his anchor and gave it a tug, yanking Victor's boat around like a toy in a bathtub. The whale then swam at the boat and slapped it with its tail. All signs pointed to a serious attack, and this was even more dangerous because there were 3 young teens on board. In the end, the entire incident lasted just a couple of minutes. The whale did eventually swim away with the line from the ship's anchor, which it had somehow ripped off during its furious attack. Luckily, nobody was harmed. To this day, Victor has no idea why the orca attacked him.
The goblin shark, also known as the vampire shark, is definitely a fish that will give you nightmares. Goblin sharks have a protruding snout that looks a lot like a sharp sword. Just below the snout are a set of protruding jaws that look mismatched on its face. Evolution spun the wheel of ugly, and the goblin shark lost in the worst possible way. The 18-foot goblin shark isn't grey like most sharks. They actually have a pinkish hue, but that doesn't make it any less scary. The nose of this living fossil is full of electromagnetic sensors. It can detect even the smallest discharge of electricity, such as in a prey's brain. When it does find food, It'll not only lock in on it, it'll actually extend its mouth from its body and chomp down. If you've ever seen the Alien movie with the xenomorph, it's kind of like that. Luckily for you, you'll probably never see one of these beasts up close. They typically cruise way down, around 3,000 feet beneath sea level. Thank goodness.
The biggest fish in the Amazon jungle is the arapaima, and it's one of the scariest things ever. These huge fish are native to the Amazon River basin, and they can reach an outstanding weight of at least 400 pounds. These fish are too big to catch. Imagine trying to wrestle a 400-pound freak fish out of a river. They can be at least 10 feet long and are so strong that if one of them hit you square in the chest with its face while in the water, it could knock the wind out of you, leave serious bruising and maybe even shatter your ribs. In terms of giant Amazon monsters, the arapaima fits the description perfectly. However, a recent report from NBC News claims that these dangerous fish are already extinct in some parts of the Amazon. In other parts, their numbers are rapidly dwindling. That's a shame, as these are extremely unique animals. They're able to breathe air using a combination of a lung and gill system, making them extraordinary in the animal kingdom.
In a shocking turn of events, a clever otter recently escaped certain death in Alaska's Halibut Cove Lagoon after using John Dornella's boat as salvation. John had been watching the horrifying struggle, not knowing what to do. The orca was clearly teasing the otter, having a bit of fun before it finally got bored and decided to tear it apart. But the otter proved just a little too wily for the sadistic whale. Just at the last second, the otter made an evasive maneuver, scrambled out of the water and climbed onto John's boat. The panicked little critter then sat next to the engine while John watched the whale splash around, clearly having a temper tantrum because its dinner had just got away. John then let the otter hang out on his boat until the coast was clear. The otter didn't say thank you when it left, but it didn't really need to. John was fairly certain the animal was thankful to still be alive.
Perhaps one of the most infamous fish on the face of the earth, especially when they're dolled up in Hollywood to look like this. The piranha is a fish that is characterized by its razor-sharp teeth that can bite through nearly anything, which they prove quite definitively as they hunt in swarms and can literally pick bones clean of meat. Furthermore, their size can be imposing as they can get up to 2 feet in length at times. Multiplied across a swarm, that's a lot of terrifying things coming at ya. Now, despite what people claim, piranhas don't openly attack humans. They'll bite them, sure, but they don't usually eat humans for a very simple reason. Piranhas prefer prey that is weak and easy to kill. That way, they can't resist the swarm descending on them and killing them. Humans are so large that as long as they keep their wits about them, they can get out of the water before the swarm eats them, unless of course the human is super weak. There are actually several species of piranhas within the regions of South America where they live, and not all eat meat solely. Some are herbivores, some are omnivores, and yes, some are meat eaters purely, like the red-bellied piranha. Regardless of that though, piranhas are very well organized. They signal to each other when prey is weak, and they'll even share the food so that everyone gets a bite. With all of these factors, it's no wonder that the myths and legends of piranhas and their feeding frenzies have grown to mythical proportions, and the fear of them has been legendary. So, should you be in South America, you'd be wise to check the waters for this fish before wading into them.
Number 1. Howler monkeys. Howler monkeys are the largest of all monkeys currently found in the Amazon jungle. While you might not think of a howler monkey as a giant monster, these are the biggest, baddest, scariest and loudest tree-swinging monsters in the Amazon jungle. According to New Scientist, male howler monkeys are actually able to make one of the loudest noises of any terrestrial animal. They make such a horrifying noise that you would probably poop your pants if you heard one while walking through the jungle. If you didn't know any better, you would think there was a 10-foot gorilla somewhere nearby ready to rip your arms off. Of course, the howler monkeys use their awful screaming to scare off other males, but they can still make the hair on your neck stand up in fear. You'll probably never encounter a howler monkey in the Amazon, as they live way up in the canopy, but their roars will haunt your dreams. If you're curious about how they make such a devastating roar, even more horrifying than that of a tiger or a lion, it's because howler monkeys have specially enlarged bones inside their necks that are used for holding a sound-amplifying air sac. They're one of the only animals that have evolved such a strange mechanism. Which one of these living monsters is the most terrifying? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and see you again soon for another awesome video.